I talked to you today, you didn't get to sleep today. Yeah, that's a problem.
I left, it was about 1:10 after. As we got home, they just loaded up in time for the downpour. It started raining really heavy. And I was standing there waiting for them to pull out, and I'm waiting, and I could see they were messing with their phones, and I said to my brother-in-law at the window, and I said, because we're trying to put the GPS on, and I'm like, it's very easy to get the turnpike.
Oh, wow.
So I just told them, it's a right and a right, and I told them how to get down to the New Cambridge, because they can't cross there.
I wore a blue shirt, that way I could cross over my hand, just go straight to Kansas Village.
Yeah, that's what I told them. So they're supposed to call me.
That's the picture of the gang.
I'm getting out of it, that's all I can say.
So how did we get all this stuff? She said, I think we have more going home than we came with.
Hello.
Hey,
Which way you go?
This is my Popeye, this is
Look
my
at that.
Popeye hat, little Kansas spinach.
Oh, that's
Look
cute.
at that.
Oh, I like that. Where'd you get that at?
What line is it?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You like Popeye?
Boston. Well, no, but they know they have a sucker when they, I have 18 of these different kinds of hats.
Oh,
so
do
like,
you? Oh, that's nice. That's good
Yeah,
collection of
it's a
stuff.
color problem.
You know what? It does not hurt anybody, is it? And it's actually
One
pretty
of,
neat.
one of the women at work showed me the website because her husband bought one. And the worst thing that could have happened, she showed me the website. And I started looking at it, and I'm like, oh, these are cool.
Yeah, that's like him with Donald
that's
Trump.
okay.
And then it just kept snowballing.
Aw.
We all have to have hobbies.
Now I'm tall. I grew a couple inches, yeah. Bring it up to the store with me. And have a young girl get, she started everything. They get something for me.
No, we'll see, but
Well, here's my Popeye hat. Oh,
Come take a look at that.
what's on your hat?
Come take
Popeye.
a look at
Did you say Popeye?
it.
Yeah,
Yes.
little cans of spinach on the outside, and then a picture of the gang on the inside.
That's so neat.
You'd never know that was on the inside.
Now it's on your neck.
Don't usually somebody gets out of
Yes.
hat, you know?
Yeah.
I had to get this. I'm like, if I wait, they're gonna get sold out,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
we'll never get them again.
Yeah.
Every single word.
That's funny.
Yeah, you get those things before they're sold out.
How's everybody?
Itchy.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's back. It's back.
Oh, boy.
And my sister's on her second dose of prednisone.
Oh, is she? So like she took like one whole. like,
She had
ibuprofen?
poison and then it turned into cellulitis.
Oh.
And so she said her arm, she showed me pictures, because her one arm was like normal and the other one was like a Popeye arm.
Yeah.
Joe sent them.
Just bad.
She really loves our church.
It's just that bad.
Yeah.
I wasn't being bitter from.
Whatever's in the heart of man will show forth.
Oh, you know what, don't encourage them.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, there she is. My goodness gracious. She's gonna think I don't even wanna talk to her.
Oh, it's Pastor's mom.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as this morning's being over here on the end of 10.
I did not even know you were here this morning. I sent her a note, I said, please tell her I'm so sorry for not having to see you. I know that's how I found out you were here. I'm just not seeing you this way. How you doing? Oh, right. No? Well, you can hear, I can't see.
No, that's my problem. I don't get up
My
and
turn. Where you wanna go sit? We'll go sit somewhere and then I'll bring you water.
I was watching one thing on TV, I woke up.
You look pretty.
A whole different program.
That's been happening to me quite a bit.
You can sit wherever you want.
Well, as soon as I sit down,
Until
start watching
Rosemary
TV,
comes, then your turn to let you know.
I've been trying not to watch it a lot. Jane Austen programs and
Wait, let me get your water.
Charles Dickinson.
Yeah, you know what, I'm stuck on YouTube. I
There you
go
go.
up all the do-it-yourself and all these, guys that find these old cars, their old trucks.
What would be in the
Well,
van?
I'm disappointed
Oh,
because
she went to get some.
I used to get YouTube. I used to be able to go on like if I was sick when I was
Oh.
sick. I got watch service and all that. Now I can't. Now it says I'm subscribed.
Oh.
Because there's not nothing there to worry
Hey,
about.
there's one here tonight too. Hello, Carol. Carol Pepera.
Yeah, probably 90% of the time I get to be
The one I
on
used to.
something.
Your granddaughter's beautiful.
News
She's
junk,
sweet.
too, turning on news.
Yes. Oh, my. Maybe, right? Yeah. Am I what? Yes, I even helped her. She's adorable. She said she was scattering up. And she's holding her. Oh, I'll take her from you. Her hair. She goes, it's pretty hair. Oh.
We ate Mexican today.
Really?
We're eating Mexican.
It's okay, not too bad.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Tammy. She said,
Hey, same seat as this morning.
okay, let's see. That's not what I want. She's gonna wake up. She won't wanna sit by me.
It's been a blink of the eye, you know.
I do, you know what?
Seems like I was just making her stuff for a baby shower. Holy crap, 5 months old. I haven't made it in that tiny, but I probably have had it. You wouldn't want that to be. And I made one for Lucy, but this is like this. Tiny girl. Right. sent me an invitation. She's somebody, I don't know if it's a Ned or it's a granddaughter, somebody's having another baby. So there's another one. I said, thank goodness I have some made ahead. So I texted her and I said, is it a girl? Does she know when she's having? She said, she's having a girl. I'm like, yes, I got lots of girl blankets. So I'm set. Okay.
I'm asking if they came back the last time I was going to quit. I keep forgetting.
They don't have to, girls or boys, or just two little ones.
Two girls had I had a mouse. Two girls had a mouse.
Well, I can try. Is the mic gonna be here? No.
How about 404? See if you know that.
I think we can manage that one.
Okay. 404. We'll get you next week.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that. If that's true, I learned it. Huh? I've been there before. Over the last time either.
Good. Evening, how are you doing? Good.
Oh, which, oh, that's the Popeye version. Oh, yeah, I like
Look inside.
That was pretty good. Hey, spinach, you love spinach, don't you?
As long as it's raw.
She doesn't like spinach.
Don't like it cooked.
No wilted greens for more. Oh, yeah. My sister made us some, she made spinach like a walking pizza. And, you sort of saute it a little bit. And, it's supposed to have like some cloves of garlic. But she put 4 bulbs of garlic. I probably like I use garlic for the next couple nights. No, I like yeah, apparently. What is it?
That's what he said.
Figured while I was down there, I might go bring it back. Yeah, put spinach with garlic, that's 2 of my best foods. Yeah. Good for you. Tomorrow, I always wanted to have I make spaghetti, so I put it on the Right, you gotta taste it. When I first started in the mine, mine doesn't seem to be that very fun. Well, she don't like season anything.
I do
I first started in the mine, they put me on his crew as an extra man. Yeah, production. They're a bunch of old officers. And, these guys they ate garlic like it was candy. I mean, I'm serious. They have a pocket full. And they're close quarters of the line. Yeah, well, so they can put the elevator garlic. Suck time you look at them, they got one in their mouth. Well, I guess everybody does this, nobody knows. Nobody knows, yeah. Oh, yeah. Talk to you. Yeah, that was one thing about the mine, odors. Somebody could eat a banana, if he was 100 feet away from me, you could smell it. Yeah. 404. Because they were always, mine was well. Yeah, state minimum, 10,000 cubic feet. Wow. Intake and return. Okay. That's minimum. Yeah, wow.
Good evening, everyone.
Yes, it's almost like that.
Hymn tonight is going to be hymn number 404. Again, it's hymn number 404, Redeemed. We'll go ahead and sing all 4 verses.
snibble my way through. That's what we're going to do tonight. I'm alive, just started, so here we go. Let me, just a few things real quick. I mentioned it at the meeting, but I did not mention it this morning. We are in need of some long, heavy-duty extension cords. So if you've got those, we could use those. So if you have those, just bring those either by Thursday, Friday morning at the latest. Shannon Singleton's aunt, I got a message from her. I did not get it out. I will get it out probably later tonight yet. Her aunt's viewing and stuff is tomorrow in New Ken. Gretchen Lisinski was having a reaction to one of her medicines, so she wasn't able to take it, and then that created other issues. So just pray they can figure all that out for her. It has to do with the ammonia in her system. And, you know, once you get ammonia, high ammonia contents, it can really mess with your cognitive abilities. And so that can mess with your mind a little bit. So please be in prayer for her. Rocky, he called, I called him back, so I didn't get the final update, but I know that he did see the vascular doctor. I don't know what they decided to do. That was the part I didn't understand in the message. So once I get that information, I will get that to you.
Yesterday.
What's that?
He called me yesterday, and he said he has two doctors, and they're both, they're in disagreement with each other. One thinks that he should lose his toe, and the other one thinks it's gonna get better. So he's stumped as to what he should do.
Okay. So I know that he's supposed to see the surgeon, not this week, but next week, the one that wants to take off the toe. And the vascular doctors, their biggest concern has been that he would have enough blood flow to heal the tissue after they take the toe off. So that's been the concern there. Of course, and then be in prayer. This is a crazy busy week getting ready for the community fair and stuff. And so be praying for, I pray for all of our team, but pray for the ones who are coming from the community. Pray that there'll be ones that'll be just seeking something, and we'll have a conversation, and we can talk with them. And yeah, we want them to come and have a good time. But unapologetically, everything we do around here is about the gospel. So whether it's a fair, a BBS, or whatever, we're all looking for the opportunities to share Jesus with people. So we're not going to try to hide that. It's not a bait and switch type thing. But so be praying about that all this week. I put that on your daily list this week. I think that's it. So we are in Genesis chapter 10. We're about to move on to Shem, but before we do that, we've got to go back and revisit Nimrod for just a second. So I'm going to let Amanda talk first.
All right, we decided to look into where the term calling someone a Nimrod became was a good thing or bad thing, because we had disagreement. A lot of you think it was bad, but again, my great-grandfather was given that name. They gave it to his son, and it couldn't have been a bad thing. Well, what we found out was, just to back it up further, that originally it was Mighty Hunter, it was a strong person, courageous, brave, and so forth, to the point that even in 1909, Shackleton, when he went down to the South Pole, he actually named his boat the Nimrod. And when he went to get crew, he was saying how, this is going to be really tough, it's going to be cold, we'll maybe unsuccessful, we may not come back alive, but if we do, you guys are going to be heroes, and how you're going to be looked upon and respected. Only Nimrod types need apply. And Cornelius Vanderbilt had also had a boat constructed that he wanted made faster and stronger than any other out there. And going against his competition, he also named it the Nimrod as well. Now, where did it change at? Now you got to go to the 1940s. And what happened here was Warner Brothers and Looney Tunes.
Yep, Looney Tunes gets credit for making it.
So what happened is you got Elmer Fudd doing his buffoon-style hunting, and Bugs Bunny coming out, doing what Bugs Bunny does best and make fun of the idiot, and actually sarcastically calls him a Nimrod. Mm-hmm. And of course, meaning, oh yeah, here's the mighty hunter. What happened was that too many kids at that point were not familiar with the biblical Nimrod, which is what Warner Brothers was referring to. And they just assumed, one, sarcasm was over their head, and two, they just took it that Bugs Bunny, that Nimrod meant a buffoon, idiot, so forth. And that's where that took a change and it stopped.
Yeah, somewhere around 1500, before 1500, Nimrod was still used in somewhat of a negative sense. The name meaning mighty hunter, but we know from a lot of things that Nimrod was a murderer, the original Nimrod. So somewhere between 14 and 1600, the hunter of men had dropped away, and just the literal etymological background of the word mighty hunter That's the actual word itself. The object of that hunt, it's like so many things. If you think about it, God has given people great abilities to do a lot of great things, but how do they use it? You can be a great chemist, but you can make illicit drugs or you can make good drugs. I mean, there are people that do both. There are these incredibly intelligent computer people that drive all of us crazy. They spend their whole lives making viruses for us. There's nothing wrong, with marketing, but yet telephone marketing's awful. So there was an etymological ebb and flow. But yeah, Warner Brothers does get credit. It's interesting. I meant to bring that up last week, but I didn't. In modern linguistic history, Warner Brothers gets credit for making it a negative, sarcastic statement. So, and I can't remember now. Was it Bugs or was it Daffy that called him a Nimrod bird?
Bugs gets the credit for it, but there's some thought that maybe it was Daffy Duck, but we know how that is. Bugs always.
Here we are on Sunday night discussing whether Bugs or Daffy. It's going to get credit for it. All right, we are very quickly. Yes, ma'am.
I wasn't here last week. From where did Nimrod, where can I look it up that I can understand who this person is?
Just back before, we only have limited information in Genesis chapter 10. You get it from Genesis chapter 10, beginning at verse 8. His name means mighty hunter. And then as you read down through historically, something I did not mention last week, and I meant to, and I'll see if I can remember to get it into a slide. It's not real clear because what we have is very cryptic, but we have written language that dates back to 500. So we have, writing. We were talking about that the other day. How early does writing go back to? We talked about how far. They have a kind of a pre-Hebrew, it looks very similar to Hebrew, but it's a very archaic form that dates to 500, which is really cool to think about that they were writing in 500. But again, that doesn't eliminate oral tradition being a part of it. I had a couple people ask me even again this week, why does it always say, that Moses wrote Genesis? Well, again, why do people say Paul wrote Hebrews? Tradition. That's what happens. It's not necessarily, Paul didn't sign Hebrews for us. That's not, I'm not going to get in trouble with that one because I don't believe Paul wrote Hebrews. So for all of you that like MacArthur and Ryrie and all those people that say he wrote it, that's fine, but I don't think so. But because it doesn't say this letter of, like Matthew signs his, Mark signs his, Luke signs his. We don't have that. A lot of Pauline literature does mention his name, but that specifically doesn't. We don't have that in Genesis, and I'm comfortable saying that Moses was the compiler of Genesis. But I believe, as I said, I think last week, I believe that there were definitively probably scrolls on the ark that may have been written by Adam and his early descendants that made it onto the ark and came off the ark with them. And yes, those would have had to been copied. This 500-year-old writing that we have is written on stone. So it's written into stone. So I don't know, papyrus became pretty much kind of, Egypt gets credit for papyrus for the most part by the time we get to something more. But that doesn't mean there wasn't some form of paper-ish, bark kind of writing before that. I love all this stuff. I could spend all night talking about how we got all that stuff together. But let's review this. We're getting close, y'all. We may be within a week. I don't know if we're going to get through Babel in 1 week or not. We'll see. There's a lot to cover because I'm actually going to stick part of chapter 11 into tonight, and I'll explain why. Look up there, see how we're doing. I'm not going to recite it out loud. Just kind of read over it a couple times. see how your memory chips are working, and then we'll take it off there. I think most of you know it better than you think you do. All right, here we go. For since the creation of the world, His invisible attributes, His eternal power and nature have been seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse. Romans 1:20. See, I think you guys got it. You guys got it.
It's only taken 8 months.
It's only taken us however many months we've been in Genesis, I don't know. We've called this section Descendants because we're looking at what is called, do you remember what the other title for Genesis chapter 10 is? There's a title that gets put on it very often. We talked about it. It's been a few weeks. What was that? The Table of Nations. That's probably the most common. If you look at a commentary or a book, it's going to say Table of Nations. Because we are not just talking about genealogy, we're also talking about geography, but we're also talking about theology. As we talked about last week, there's a purpose behind things being written. It's not just that these specific names are there. We're getting to the point where we're getting beyond that. So we started out with Japheth, and we looked through all of his. We went down his whole list. The Japhethites, for the most part, went way up north and east. Some people give them credit for China and Australia. There are other people that give Ham credit for China. We don't really have a super specific understanding where they were. Come on, there we go. We talked about all the Hamites, which we have all the Eames, and they were in northern Africa, up near Egypt a lot, down that coast, and really spread out quite far, if you remember, geographically. They were spread out quite far. So now, I don't know why it's doing it that way. Move on to the Shemites. Shem's name just means name, which is kind of interesting. Call your kid name. I don't know why, but that's what his name means, at least what we know. So the author of Genesis is turning the attention towards Shem. And specifically, as we're going to read it here in just a second, you'll see the emphasis becomes on Eber, and there's a reason that the emphasis is going to be on Eber, and I have to put you in chapter 11 to be able to get you that understanding, because where those are all going to play out together. It is a practice all the way throughout Genesis when using genealogies to often list, what's a good phrase? I want to say non-elect, but I don't have, that's the only word I've got. The non-chosen ones of Israel. The Israelites are chosen, but oftentimes it'll list the non-chosen people's genealogies before it moves into the chosen people. So that is going on here. We're looking at chapter 10, verses 21 to 31, but we're also in chapter 11, looking at verses 10 to 26 a little bit when we're starting to talk about names and things. In chapter 10, we kind of have Peleg kind of just disappears off the chart, but it's picked back up in chapter 11. The introductory statement highlights this line. So look at Genesis chapter 10, verse 21. And also to Shem, the father of the children of Eber, and the older brother of Japheth, children were born. So you see the emphasis goes from Shem all the way over to Eber, which is a pretty quick move if you think about. So Eber is, for those of you who have, Eber's over here. So you have child, grandchild, great-grandchild. In the first verse, that's where it jumps to. And so it's very different from some of the other branches. We also have that new phrase, sons were born, that other phrasing instead of the son of Ben, Shem, or be Ashkad Shem, or Ashkad Ben Shem, son of Shem. This changes a little bit, the language a little bit, just like it did before, actually emphasizing the son. That's happened. We talked about that already. Also, we see this kind of generic statement, the father of all the children of Eber. That doesn't mean that Shem was the father of all of the Eberites as far as actual children. It meant the lineage that came out of the Eberites and how that works. He's the patriarch. And the reason is that's the line that's going to take us to Abram. That's where Abram's going to come out of, and that's why it becomes so important. It gets immediate attention, even though it's going to take us a little bit of time to get there. It is interesting that it throws out here that Shem is the older brother of Japheth. We talked about the ages of the three boys originally. We spent a lot of time doing that. Some people have said that the linguistic Eber, when I get over and I can get my phonetic pronunciation, then I'll tell you what the Hebrew pronunciation is. But some scholars believe that Eber is the preview to the word Hebrews. That it's an etymological connection to that. That's interesting because it's really not an often used term in the Old Testament, to be honest, to refer to them as the Hebrews, unless it was a negative statement. Particularly in Exodus, when they were referred to as the Hebrews, that was not a positive statement, it was a negative statement, kind of like Christian. They were first called Christians in Antioch, but that wasn't a positive statement. It was a negative, it was a derogatory term in its original function. It was usually, if it got used, it was usually to distinguish Hebrews from foreigners. Joseph did describe it as the land of Hebrews. So I don't want to make a lot out of that, but I wanted to at least mention it because you'll see that in some commentaries and some footnotes. Some of my Bibles, when I was looking at my footnotes, it was mentioned in the footnotes that Eber may be an early form of the word Hebrew. So from there, we begin to move through. So let's read a little bit. And I'm going to pronounce them the best way that I can remember right now, but then when we go back through, I'll give you the Hebrew phonetics, because I have them written in, because I don't know them off the top of my head. But I wrote them down. Like, for example, we would say Elam, Hebrew is Elam. So it's a little different as far as how the Hebrew pronunciation goes. But anyway, start verse 21 again. Also to Shem, the father of the sons of Eber, the older brother of Japheth, the children were born. The sons of Shem were Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, and Lud, and Haram. The sons of Haram were Uz, and Hul, and Gether, and Mash. How'd you like to have that name? Big Mash.
It's easier to say.
Better than Petershal Hashbaz, which comes around later. Anyway, Arphaxad became the father of Shelah, and Shelah became the father of Eber. 2 sons were born to Eber. The name of the one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Yoktan. Yoktan became the father of Amodad, and Sheleph, and Harzmaveth, and Jerah, and Hadaram, and Uzzal, and Diklah, and Obal, and Abimael, and Sheba, and Ophir, and Havilah, and Yobab, and these were the sons of Joktan.
Good
All right, here we go. Now, their settlement extended from Mesha as you go towards Shafar, the hill country of the east. These are the sons of Shem, according to their families, according to their languages, by their lands, according to their nations. And then we have the final commentary for chapter 10. These are the families of the sons of Noah according to their genealogies, by their nations. And out of these nations were separated on the earth after the flood. Remember, we said that Genesis chapter 10 and Genesis chapter 11 are not necessarily chronological in their approach. We're not trying to say that there were already nations and languages prior to what happens at Babel, but it still helps us to understand. Then if you would, in chapter 11, jump over to chapter 11 and begin at verse 10. These are the records of the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and became the father of Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived 500 years after he became the father of Arphaxad, and he had other sons and daughters. Arphaxad lived 35 years and became the father of Shelah. And Arphaxad lived 403 years after he became the father of Shelah, and he had other sons and daughters. Shelah lived 30 years and became the father of Eber, and Shelah lived 403 years after he became the father of Eber, and he had other sons and daughters. Eber lived 34 years and became the father of Peleg, and Eber lived 430 years after he became the father of Peleg, and he had other sons and daughters. Peleg lived 30 years and became the father of Reu, and Peleg lived 209 years after he became the father of Reu, and he had other sons and daughters. Reu lived 32 years and became the father of Sarah, and Reu lived 207 years after he became the father of Sarah, and he had other sons and daughters. Sarah lived 30 years and became the father of Nahor, and Sarah lived 200 years after he became the father of Nahor, and he had other sons and daughters. Nahor lived 29 years and became the father of Terah, and Nahor lived 119 years after he became the father of Terah, and he had other sons and daughters. Terah lived 70 years and became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. So I could actually keep going, but I'm just going to unveil the rest of the genealogical line up there so that you can at least see it, how it pulls out from here. Peleg, Reu, Sarah, Nahor, Terah, Abraham, Nahor, and of course Haran is also the father of Lot. And then we end up with a couple of women in the genealogy also that get mentioned. That's why they're of different color. They got mentioned because women don't get much feature in genealogies, but they are going to get mentioned in verses 27 through 32, but we're not going to talk about them much tonight. Yes, ma'am?
Why did they wait so long to have children? 32 years, 35 years. Well, the youngest is Nahor. I mean, he was only 29 years old. I mean.
What were they waiting for?
Yeah, I mean, like, why? It just seemed like they all waited for 30 years.
Well, let's talk a little bit.
Sean,
Good.
isn't it in typical Jewish culture, of course this is earlier, is that they typically think a guy becomes a man, his married age is probably closer to 30. This guy gets maybe more responsible or something sometimes.
That really didn't become a thing until later. I would be reading in a little bit. It's possible. There's a lot going on historically during this time. You've got a lot of buildings, you've got a lot of spreadings and stuff that's going on. The actual narrative of Babel is in the first 9 verses of chapter 11. So it could have to do with relocation, it could have had to do with building of new cities, it could have had, there's any number of possibilities of why one person, I mean, why do some people get married at 18 and some people get married at 40 now? I don't know.
They all did the same thing.
I don't know, they all played around and just waited until they wanted to, I guess.
When it said different languages, why would they talk different languages? They were all sort of like from the same person?
Well, they will speak different languages after Babel. That's after Babel.
Is Babel Babel?
Yes.
Okay.
Babel, Babel.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting confused when you're using.
You want me to use the colloquial term?
Yes, use the real.
Babel.
Thank you.
Actually, what I was going to add was, I'm going to say just the opposite here. Why did they wait so long? Because I'm looking at most all of these here between age, 29 to 35, had their first son. So why is it that supposedly Shem's first son, as we think, is after 2 years after the flood, when he's like 100 years old? I'm kind of leaning to believe he had other sons prior to the flood that didn't make it. They're just not accounted for.
Remember, we talked about this as not being necessarily an all-inclusive genealogy, and you find that in Genesis chapter 11 when they said, and they had other sons and daughters. You've got that kind of expanding mindset. Often in genealogies, it's usually the firstborn that gets mentioned, not necessarily all of them. So that plays into the discussion a little bit too.
And it makes it sound like Shem was 98 years old when he came off the ark.
Well,
Because he had his son at 100 years old, 2 years after the flood.
yes,
So he had to be 98
Yeah,
when
he
he came
was-
off the ark.
yeah, he was.
Okay.
I mean, you gotta remember, at this point, they're still living 800-900 years old. I mean,
Right.
this is not,
Yeah, he's still a teeny bopper.
yeah, at 100, he's still barely out of adolescence yet, you know. So let's work our way through this a little bit.
Why, I can ask a question, under, below lot on there, why are the other two a different color?
Those are females.
Okay.
Again,
I can't see them.
yeah, it's hard to see them. It looks fine on my computer screen, but up there it doesn't look so great. They're pink on my computer screen. You just can't see that they're pink. But let's work our way through these a little bit. This is the generic map. This was put together. This particular map comes from a Jewish commentary just about what the world was. Again, you can see some of the areas we've talked about. This is my favorite map, the one that's hard to read. This is my favorite one. I can't do anything to it. I've already tried many times over, but this one might help us a little bit. But again, we're going to have to try to figure out. You can see in this commentary here that this particular map writer believed that a bear was actually the preview of the word Hebrew. So this map here is okay. Again, I don't have to agree with anybody's map. I can like my own map. But let's work our way through these a little bit. I'll leave that map up here, but I'm going to refer back to the one that's light because it's more accurate in my opinion. So Elam's name means eternity. You can see on this particular map, he's right over here, right next to Mosh is over there. We're talking about Babylonia over in that area. Mountainous regions, right over, not far from Tigris and Euphrates over in that area. The Elamites, you think of it that way, as far as they are sometimes given credit for being in southwest Iran, and that works sorta over there, but it is indeed north of the Persian Gulf. Capital of Elam was noted as being Susa, which you should recognize from the book of Daniel and Esther. Esther's the big one that we would remember. And Elam is actually probably the most far easternly one that we have a pretty good concrete, with the exception of Joab as far as Shem goes. But he's the farthest, Joab's possibility being down on that peninsula. We'll talk about him when we get there. He shows up in Esther 1, shows up in Daniel chapter 8. If you think back among the coalitions of the eastern kings whom Abraham routed, that was the king of Elam, that mentioned in there. One of the problems for modern readers is they struggle with the fact that the Elamites, though they were Shemitic in their lineage, but their linguistics are non-Semitic. Very much non-Hebrew in their languages today. It's dropped to different. So some people struggle with that. We look at cultural, we look at geographical. It's believed that the Elamites, even though they were a Semitic or what we consider potentially line of Jews, they were so far removed, they were a minor tribe, and they just did not assimilate into what would become. And again, Jews don't start until who? So we don't get there until we get to Abraham. So we're a ways off at this point. So reading into and using even phrases like Semitic or pre-Semitic language, but people like to get all bent out of shape about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Horrible geography. Where are we looking at now as far as where today would be?
Well, this is the Persian Gulf right here. So Elam is just on the northern shore. Here's the Tigris and Euphrates coming down out of here. So it's on the outer edge of modern day Iran, kind of. Is that right? Am I in the right? I was going to overlay a modern map, but that gets really messy.
The little red square is right where Israel would be.
Yeah, the little red square is where Israel is at. This one over here. Oh, no. We've seen that already, but I want to talk about it again. So Israel's over here. Babylon is all in here.
I think Iran would be in the red.
Yeah, Iran is kind of more.
And Iraq would be where the Euphrates and where Babylon.
Yeah, Iraq is like right in here where the Euphrates and Tigris are. It's kind of on the outer edge of Iraq, if I could say it that way. But it's more into the red, Iraq would be today. So it's hard looking at these ancient maps. It really is to put it all together. The way I keep it straight in my head is the bodies of water. That's how I use it to find it, because it's just off the north of like the Persian Gulf. You look at the Red Sea, look at the Arabian Sea, look at the Mediterranean, Caspian. I kind of do it that way. And then when I go back to look at modern maps, that's where I go. I look at the bodies of water, especially if I have rivers to go off of, the mountains that are running right through that region as well. So that's not a full answer, but it's a little bit of an answer. One of these days, I'm going to get really brave and make my own maps of Genesis chapter 10 and 11 and lay over modern cities as well. Ashur, his name means a step. He was probably the region of the Assyrian people. So let me use this other one because it's brighter. So we're still in the Babylonia area up here, right on the Tigris. Tigris River is running right there, so Ashur is right there in the center. Some people, well, we know that Nimrod founded some cities in that area. It will later get that name. Fact is, when we get to even into like the 1300s BC, one of the early monarchs of the land of Assyria bears the name of Ashur. It bears that name as an early Assyrian king. So, and we're quite a ways away from that by the time he actually used that name, by the time we get there. From there, we move into, this one's so hard to pronounce, Arpachshad, which means, I shall fail as the breast, or he cursed the breast bottle. Evidently, he had trouble nursing. I'm just making an assumption here. We are now headed north. So Arpachshad is up here. Anybody know what else is right up there, pretty close? You can see it, it's right there. We're not too far from Nineveh. In some Assyrian texts, there is a shortened form of this that might be Arafa as a possibility. He's born 2 years after the flood. He's one of the few names in this list that make it into Luke's genealogy. Luke chapter 3, verse 36, Arpachshad's name ends up in the genealogy. And so, again, we're not looking at a complete genealogy of all the names, but I think it's interesting that he shows up in Luke's genealogy. I thought that was kind of cool. The descendants of Arpachshad were definitely Chaldeans, definitely of the Chaldean people. Arpachshad's lifespan is given as 438 years, and 35 is the age he fathered Shelah. There are all kinds of Chaldean texts that refer back to Arpachshad. So we have a lot of Babylonian and Chaldean texts that help us identify not just the name, but also the area, the location. So that helps us a little bit. We move on to Lud, which is probably the most controversial of locating them. His name means strife. Now you'll see on this map, they put Lud up here, way up in Asia Minor. If we go back in this map, you see it show up here again as well. They're associating with Lydia. There is another argument that it might be Ludbu, which is an Assyrian area. We don't really know, okay? That's where we run into trouble. It's considered a possible shortened form of Lydia, a shortened form of Luda, a shortened form of Ludbu. The problem is Lydia's in basically Turkey is where that's at, is where we're talking. We start talking about Lydia. But at the end of the day, sometimes I'm okay with going, we're just not certain with where this one's at. And I know that would be really nice if we knew exactly where everything was at, but we don't. And we have to be okay with that because you weren't alive back then. I know some of you think Franklin was, but, what's that?
I said, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. Well, you're welcome. In Jeremiah chapter 46, we have the plural form, the Ludim. They're talked about as the archers of Egypt. In Ezekiel 27, that plural Ludim talks about them being mercenaries for Tyre. So I mean, we're all over the place. I'm pretty comfortable with believing, and this is just me, that Lud was perhaps a nomadic tribe, and they were in a lot of areas. I don't know that they were in any necessary, because they show up in so many different, like I said, if indeed it's the same one that Jeremiah is talking about, we find in Egypt, if it's the same one that Ezekiel's talking about mercy, it would make much sense to me to know that they were just nomadic people and they picked up work wherever they could. But evidently, they were army, because in both cases you have them as mercenaries, you have them as archers in both of those texts. So they were some kind of military, nomadic people that just moved around. Isaiah chapter 66 puts Lud in connection with Tubal and Javan, which are coastlands. Again, they're on the Ionian coast. So again, if you just want to go with my brain, they were nomadic. They were all over the place. We moved from there, we moved to Aram. Aram's name means exalted. He's considered to be an ancestor of the Aramean tribes, kind of in Mesopotamia. The descendants are not really well known. We have 4 sons of Aram listed. It's interesting that the Arameans are listed in 3 to 4 groups of people. When you start listening to the Arameans, they have 4 groups, so that makes sense with Aram's 4 sons that they spread out. Aram, gotta find him again. He's up right there, up on that, just south of Japheth's land. There is a little bit of a genealogical, can I say it, discrepancy in First Chronicles. First Chronicles bears a lot of the same genealogy. So there's a little genealogical error that we would call an error, but probably it's due to something which is a mistake called haplography, which when they were copying Hebrew text, their eyeball went like this. It moved down. And if you've ever seen a Hebrew text, it's real easy to, we find what we would call, I'm not, none of the quote-unquote errors such as haplography affect any theology in Scripture. But it does show up in some of our translations. Fact is, there is, in one translation, instead of it being the parable of the vineyard, it's actually the parable of the vinegar, because they got their letters mixed up. And it wasn't the English coming out of it. They just didn't write it correctly. Now, the vineyard is very clear in the rest of the text, but there is a Bible that is known as the Vinegar Bible because of that kind of error along the way. Syria, there's really not necessarily one Aramean state. Again, we talked about the 4 of them. Laban and Jacob are both referred to as Arameans in chapter 25 and Deuteronomy chapter 26. From there, we move on to Oats, right there, right on the northwest side of Israel.
Is that what we know as us?
Yeah, that's how you would pronounce it. I told you, I can give you the colloquial, I can give you the Hebrew, so I'm doing them both. What's Oats most famously known for? Who came from Oats? Job. So very, and again, we are bits of information that are scattering us around. Jeremiah 25, Oats is linked specifically with the Philistines. And in Job 1, he's said to, Oats has been attacked by the Sabians or the Arabians and the Chaldeans from the Mesopotamians. Job describes it as a desert area, which makes sense if it is on that northwest side of Israel. In Lamentations chapter 4, Oats almost comes across as maybe the same area as the Edomites. Again, it could be, but that's pushing a little hard. The most promising information, because of the geographical identification for Job's, shall we call them friends? I don't really want to call them friends, but Eliphaz is the Temanite, Bilite, the Shuhite, Zophar, the Naamite, also point them over towards Edom. So that's a possibility. Josephus says that Oats was the father of the inhabitants of Damascus. We're a little far north for that, but again, near the Haran Gate, in that area, is Job's well. which is considered part of Oates. So it's kind of part of that northwest area seems to be the most likable area. We move on to Hull, or however you want to say it, Hull. His name means circle. I'm assuming he had a round head. Again, most people put him down on the Arabian Peninsula a little bit. I can't find him, which puts him down here. This particular map puts him up here. Again, this is a disputed area. Probably again an Arabian area. It's another, when we start getting to this list of names, until we get into the actual lines of Abram, when we get into the lines of Abram, we have some more specifics. That's because it's been preserved. Specifically, the Jewish line gets preserved, and we know more about those specific areas. The ones that are not more problems for Israel than they are help for Israel, we don't know for sure. So we find some information. We move on from there, and all right, Mara, how do you pronounce Gether?
Jethar.
Nice try. Try Gator. Gether. His name means fear. Probably geographically, I gotta find him again. Might find him before I did.
I can't remember that name.
I don't see him. Is he up there? He's on the other map. He's on the smaller map. I can go back to that one. He was, again, Aramean in that we're still talking about everything in the Arabian Peninsula area. This is all, with the exception of possibly Lud being up. Everybody else is in this Arabian deserts area. They're north of that, or in that basic area. We move into Mosh. Mosh's name means to draw out. I'm assuming he was a forceps delivery. Hey, when you get names, you can make up funny things when you come out of. Well, I'm just saying, they didn't have forceps. Well, I don't know if they had forceps back then or not. He is listed in a couple extra biblical texts. A lot of people associate this area with Mount Massius, which is a mountain range at the head of, I gotta find it, the Euphrates River. Okay, so Massius right here. So there's a mount there called Mount Massius. It's also called Tur Abdin. The Akkadian word for Euphrates is actually Masu, so that Mosh name could have very much been part of that. So in that area, First Chronicles, when they refer to Mosh, actually lists him as Meshech or Meshach, which you guys would be familiar with. Again, names change a little bit, because, not everybody goes by Bob. Some people go by Robert, some people go by Bobby, some people go by, hey, you. So names migrate a lot. From there, then the line switches, and we move into Arphaxad, and we go from Arphaxad to Eber, and we're using this begot phrase, okay? This is where we're getting into that begot thing again. Instead of son of, we're getting into the begot. We run into Shelah. Shelah's name means sprout. He is part of the line that is going to culminate with Abram, which is ultimately, this line becomes important. Why does the line of Abram become important? And why is that important?
Christ
Yeah, we need, this line is important to us because this is Jesus's great, 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 whatever greats there are. I should have counted them to figure out how many I'm supposed to say, but I didn't. So it's sometimes it's used to describe things like a canal. It's used to describe a weapon. So sprout is kind of like, okay, what are we doing with his name? But yet it's described. Canaanites had a deity, Selah, which was the god of the infernal river, was what they said. And possible even that it's actually part of Methuselah, could have been where he got his name from. Methu and Salah, so we're in that name. We don't know for sure as far as that goes. We do have a lot of Arabic and quite a few extra biblical things that help us out with that. And now I gotta find it. He's not on this one either. That's the way that works. Told you I like that other map, but y'all won't like because you can't see. All right, I gotta keep moving. Aver just means the region beyond, and we read that he was 464 years and was the ancestor. Again, I don't want to make too much out of it. Don't want to make too much light about that whole Hebrew thing. Aver had a son in whose time, here we go, we get this commentary, all right? The two sons were born to Aver. The name of one was Peleg. For in his days the earth was divided. Commentary in the middle of genealogy. Why? It's got to be there for a reason. We'll talk a little bit about that because Peleg's name actually helps us with that. Aver is associated with the name of the Ibrahim, which by the time we get to the 3rd millennium BC, we run into a Syrian city that bears that name. He is up here. I gotta find it. He's way up north. So Aver, and you're going to see Peleg kind of right just south of him. So Peleg's name, getting on to the next name, it means division, but it could also mean, well, the Hebrew dictionary says water course or direction of a water. And then it says that in his time, the earth was divided. It seems to be one of two things. Either a reference to Babel and when everything was divided. As far as that timeline goes, it's like one of those parenthesis things that gets stuck in. Some people say that it's chapter 11 in Babel. Other thinks that that this is when the continents were split, for example. There are people that believe that this refers to when Pangaea was actually split up. I think that happened during the flood. I think that's when at least the bulk of the continental drift took place was during the flood, but I have to throw it out there. But Peleg is the Old Testament description of the division of the languages as well. So this is one of the first, in Genesis, this is the first time we have a division of the earth or the land. Again, I'm probably most comfortable associating it with what happened at Babel. We have plenty of Syrian references, which that's in the right area where Peleg is at. We're right in the Syrian area up there. Then the table traces the tribes from Joktan or Yoktan. Yoktan's name means small or smallness. And when we go from there, it's kind of extraordinary because it's pretty extensive all of a sudden. Yoktanites were kind of to be descendants of the same stock of the Israelites, which is kind of remarkable because their settlements, where identifiable, are really located in the southwest corner of Arabia, not necessarily up in. When we get in there, the names are not the same as the Arab tribes that are mentioned in Syrian inscriptions. So it's peculiar in the list that maybe some of there's some lost history of how the relationships all worked, possibly because of commerce, because of trade, a lot of those things. Yoktan also can mean to diminish or diminutive. So that idea of shrinking or pulling away. There are multiple names in even modern day Arabian from the stem that the KTN in American, in English KTN. So Katana, which is in Israel, Qatar, those are Yoktanian derivatives. So Israel's going to find blood ties to all of those Yoktanites. We don't have much information outside of the Bible on them. Modern tribes of southern Arabia claim that that pure Arabs or those that are pure Arabians are Yoktanites. So we get this, from there we get this long list of names again. And this gets really drawn out. So we run into Almodad, which has two meanings, a secular meaning, which means not measured, and then a Hebrew meaning, which is God is friend. Again, there are plenty of Southern Arabian Sabian names that we run into this name. And again, we're talking about, once we start getting into this area, we start seeing it as transliteration. So a translation is actually what a word means. A transliteration is basically taking the Hebrew letters and putting them into English letters. So that's why you have places like Qatar, Qatan, and places like that. And that takes us all the way through this whole region. We run into Shelef. His name means drawing forth in Arabic. In Hebrew, his name means a peace offering of Jehovah. In fact, is the peace offering bears the name Shelef offering in Hebrew. Probably Yemenites, the Yemenite tribes, the Hadranians possibly. Moves from there, and then I have fun pronouncing that next one. I'll do my best. Hatzer Mathet. That is, we run into that big long name. It is probably in the Wadi area. They trace their area all over the place. We have little known archaeological evidence suggests long periods of settlement, but a lot of movement around. The Hasmareth was a powerful group in the 5th century BC, and even in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, we run into them as well. They were the regions of, they're known for bringing frankincense. That whole area is a big area that was famous for frankincense, which is made from a resin. So being on a seaport kind of area, being in that mindset can help there. Yerah, did somebody say something? Oh, Yerah, Jerah, however you want to say it. His name means new moon. That ends up being the name of an Arabian god, the Yerah does later. there is connection to both areas. Remember that the Hebrews follow a lunar calendar, not a solar calendar, so the moon reference is in here as well. I'm trying to hurry. I've got all kinds of other notes. Hadaram or Hadoram means noble or honor. Again, Southern Arabian area. And I am flying because we are out of time. Utsal means I shall be flooded. Ezekiel 27 talks about Utsal being a source of wine. That's where they would have gotten wine. It's been linked with the Itzala in northeastern Syria, near kind of Medina in that area. Ezekiel talks about them being trading partners with Tyre. So there's a lot of information. It's said to have been a pre-Islamic name for Sana'a, which is now the capital of Yemen. So you get before the Islamic takeover of that area, and you run back and you find the Hebrew name. You move into Dikla. His name means palm grove, probably referring to a oasis. It's probably near the Tigris River in that region. But we're talking about like think of an oasis. That would be the idea of palm grove. That would have been a good area. There is an oasis in Saudi Arabia that still bears this name. So again, somewhere in that region. Ophal means stripped bare. Oval in First Chronicles becomes Ebal. Same name, different spelling. We have trouble knowing exactly where Ebal is at, but he's on the map up there. Abimael means my father is God in northern Arabia. So we're up north there. We move into Sheba, meaning seven or oath. We've already ran into this name, right? So tell me, why are we running into it again? Are we talking about the same person? Did somebody make a mistake? What do you think? Got named after a family relative. There's my answer to the problem. That happens all the time. Now, why they would have named him after the other line of the other folks, we don't know. But that's most likely what happened, is you have him being named after somebody in the family. It happens all the time.
Maybe they ran out of names.
Well, from the sounds of it, they did. Because they just kept shoving letters together. Trust me, that's what I felt like when I'm learning all these, trying how to pronounce all these things. It bordered the Red Sea. It was considered a very wealthy region, very fertile region. Herodotus said that the whole tract exhaled an odor of marvelous sweetness. Diodorus, a commentator, relates the perfume that extended far out into the sea. So think about a very beautiful area in that. A lot of gold and silver in their furniture is believed to be from this region as well. Ophir means reduced to ashes. How would you like that for a name? Reduced to ashes. And he's mentioned as a brother of Havilah. Again, we find more about them. Ophir is consistently cited throughout the Old Testament for its gold. We run into Ophir being a source. Whether or not they're mining it there or they sold it there, probably mined it from that area. Solomon sent merchant ships to bring back gold and all sorts of exotic things from that area. Havilah means circle, and again, unreliable. Yovav means a desert. So we're kind of, there were 3 branches of the Sabian tribes that moved out from there. Did I get them all? I think I got them all. So let me just, I want to make some, like 4 quick comments, and actually these are, I liked what Warren Wiersbe had to say about this. The list of names and places carries with it some important theological truths, not the least of which that God is the God of all nations. God is the God of all people, not just a certain lineage. Yes, God did choose to follow through the Shemites and eventually through the Abrahamites into what we would eventually know as the Jewish people. But that doesn't mean that God didn't have anything to do with the nations. He's the one that formed them all. God, according to Deuteronomy, God gave all nations their inheritance. Acts chapter 17, remember we looked at that He determined the times and appointed the boundaries of where they were going to be. God knew where all that was going to happen after the spread out in Genesis chapter 11. It was ordered of the Lord and God's sovereignty. In spite of some crazy people like Nimrod, Jehovah is a God of geography and history. He's in control. What God promises, He has fulfilled. In spite of some external differences, this pulls us back to the reminder that we're all one blood. I mean, we all go back to a 2-person DNA genealogy, eventually. If you want to get a little further than that, we all go back to at least an 8-person genealogy of those that came off the ark. You all were related to Shem, Ham, or Japheth. Everybody in this room is related to one of those 3 in some ways. I shared with you last week that Isaac figured out that I'm a Japhethite somewhere on my maternal grandmother, my dad's great-grandmother. That's where it went. So he traced it all the way back, and we're somehow Japhethites.
I was just going to comment that, you know, even though generally the Shemites were in this area, the Hamites were in that area, the Japhethites were there, I'm sure you had a lot of intermarrying, especially where they, you know, then that might explain Sheba and Seba, as you see, they're right across the Red Sea from one another. Havilah and Ophir are right down there, you know.
Yep.
So you know, certainly they intermarried.
I think there was a lot of intermarrying, and I think that's part of the reason that God set a boundary later that they should marry only within the godly lines. You know, marrying within the specific tribes. I think God set those boundaries because of what was happening. They were crossing out into what we would now call pagan nations, those that were outside of the chosen area, and they were getting into things. Let me see. God has a purpose for all nations. Wiersbe reminds us. It makes it clear that God is working with a specific area. But God used Egypt, God used Babylon, God used Assyria, God used Medo-Persia, God used Rome, God used Greece, all in reference with His chosen people. Sometimes they were the ones that spanked Israel, and sometimes they were ones that partnered with Israel. God can use pagan rulers, Nebuchadnezzar, Cyrus, Darius, even Caesar Augustus, and on down. God is concerned with the nations. Psalm 66 and Psalm 67 talks about the fact that all the nations of the earth would come to know God and to serve Him. That's the plan. We are to go into all the world and preach the gospel. So these nations are not just a list of all of this. And Noah's sons very much have a mixed legacy. Ham went off the deep end early, and his descendants, for the most part, didn't come back around. The Japhethites kind of were a mixed, some were, some weren't. And not everybody in the line of Shem was necessarily godly. But again, God is a God of history, and history is still his story. It is part of that. And when we read these lists again, it becomes sometimes confusing because, again, looking at when they all had their children and how old they were and how long they were and how long. We'll talk about next week when we get into Babel how many years after getting off the ark approximately it took them to get to the point where they would build this. Well, we'll talk about what it was. People think of different things, and we'll talk about what that might have been, Lord willing, next time we get together. Thanks for hanging with some of these things. Some of you eat this stuff up. Some of you are like, oh, I can't wait till we're done with all this. And hey, I love you both. Trust me, I have skipped over way more than I have given you. There is so much extra biblical, historical references to all these names. Not every one of them, but a lot of them, they're referenced in history, Assyrian history, Babylonian history. We see these same names show up. Again, we don't need that to prove the Bible. The Bible stands on its own. We don't need that stuff to prove it. The Bible proves their story more than it's the other way around. God, thank you so much for your word. Thank you that you've given us these things so we might understand how you work, how the nations spread out, and specifically as we've been building up with these long lists of names, understanding that we've got a lot of people on earth at this point. We got a lot of people spread out, well, not yet, all together, but we've got a large people group that have massed together, and they're going to, instead of doing what you told them to do, they're going to create an idea in their own minds of what it means to have a relationship with you. And God, I pray that we will learn a lesson from that as we get into that. God, we pray that you would just be with us as we part from this place. Give us journey mercies. Bring us back together that we might worship you on the overflow. God, I pray that you'd be with the community fair coming up. We pray for our team. We pray that you keep everybody healthy. Pray that we'd have good weather. We pray for those that come. Pray, God, that even if we had the chance to open and share the gospel with even just one directly, we would consider it worth it if we would see that. But God, we're doing it. This is what we feel you have us to do. We're stepping out in faith to share the gospel by loving the community, by giving information, by inviting them to be a part of what you're doing here. God, we're going to keep doing that in various manners and various methods, any way we can, get the gospel out there until you come back. We're going to try to continue to do what you've called us to do. We pray that we're faithful to that end. Help us to be grateful for when we arrive to our homes tonight that you got us there safely. We pray in Christ's name. Amen.
Now, anybody can come Tuesday, right, to help?
Yes, Tuesday night, 6. Yep, come help. Jess will appreciate it. What's that?